Today, we are going to be talking about what is happening inside Nintendo right now as they're prepping for this big, huge Switch 2 Nintendo Direct. It's happening. It's coming.
Yes, they are in the crunch time to get this thing done. That's a big moment. That's going to take them into the next phase of launching the Switch 2. And we know what happens when it gets to be this time. A lot of people working real hard, but we're going to go kind of department by department and share what we think everybody's up to.
Yeah, some of the stuff might surprise you a little bit because it's really like one of those sort of all hands on deck kind of times at the company. And it's hard because everything is related to everything else. So it's like this very intricate puzzle of things happening, and your job depends on other people's stuff happening. And there's a lot that can go wrong, and it's a little scary. There could be leaks, there could be mistakes, there could be accidental website postings, there could be all sorts of things that can go wrong.
Speaking of things going wrong, I would like to share a health tip with the good people out there.
Don't lick the floor.
This is a valuable health tip. No, my health tip is don't get the flu, because that's what happened to me. I got the flu.
Yes,
that's why we're not here. And I don't recommend it. It's been a few years since I had it.
It's not great.
Still bad. I got the fever, I got the aches, I got the whatever. But I feel terrible physically, but fine mentally. So I'm hoping that my voice will hold up to get through this podcast. I've got Retro Studios cup of honey tea off to the side. I've got all my little things. I took the Dayquil.
Tea.
Yes.
It's whiskey, isn't
it? The clock is ticking on this Dayquil that I took.
Okay, we better get going then. Yes, we're sorry that you're not feeling well, but the podcast always happens no matter what. This is the motto of the company, along with Don't Get Sued.
Well, look, Michael Jordan had the famous flu game, so I can have the famous flu pod. Maybe this will be one of my greatest performances ever. Go down in history.
Go down in history.
Yes.
If I can do it through the norovirus, you can do it through this. I hope that you will disinfect your area after you leave our beautiful studio. You're going to be like spewing your disgusting germs everywhere. Please alcohol wipe everything. Thank you. Yes, you are away. We are apart, but we are still in a celebratory mood because it is our 3-year anniversary of starting this amazing venture, this cool channel, getting together with all of you and starting our beautiful, wonderful, wholesome community. 3 years have gone by. I can't believe it, but I can believe it, but I can't believe it at the same time. How do you feel?
You said it feels like it went fast, but also slow. What does that mean?
I don't know. I feel like I'm doing the job that I'm meant to do my whole life. In that sense, it feels like I can't imagine doing anything else. And so then it feels long because it's like, I feel like I'm doing something that I'm just meant to do. And now it just feels like, weird to think about doing anything else but this. But also it's like, the time passed really fast. So
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great accomplishment. There was no guarantee that this would work out at all. Like, we could be back at some poor corporate job just droning away and doing our things versus droning away on a podcast. That's a much better way to drone on, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Oh my gosh, it was definitely a risk, definitely a no safety net kind of leap off a cliff situation, and hoping that it does something. But yes, we are here. Here's to another many more years. And I've been reading lots of really lovely comments from our community telling us about how they love, this new thing that we started. And it's been awesome.
Now, you want some proof that my brain is still sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
You wrote something down on our little episode planner here that is outdated.
Why?
You wrote down that we should mention the gameplay video for Ruffy and the Riverside. We talked about that last week.
We should talk about it again because now the demo is out and people can actually play it. And they should, because it's an amazing demo on Steam. But if you would like to see me play it, because I'm amazing at playing it, I'm not, you can watch our gameplay video. That's what I wanted to say.
Or you could look forward to our next gameplay video for Super Metroid, which is coming very soon.
Yes, I'm done editing that one, actually. I finished that one yesterday.
Coming
So
soon.
that's coming soon. The gameplay videos are filling up fast and furiously, which is exciting stuff. So now we have Donkey Kong, we have Ruffy, we're going to have Super Metroid, and then we'll see what else we get up to, but it might be Mischief Makers next.
Coming soon, we promise.
Coming soon,
Mischief Makers.
Mischief Makers.
We promise.
Yeah.
I got some new equipment. I'm obsessed with, like, obviously these old systems don't have the right inputs to feed into a modern TV. Now I have something that plugs straight into the system but just ends with an HDMI cable.
Oh.
So I've been fiddling around with that the last couple days.
Good.
These games look pretty sharp, I gotta say. It looks pretty nice.
Do they like upscale it?
No.
Or? Okay, but how does it look sharper?
I mean, it's not the same junky little 3 cables that you would put in. It's
Oh,
a cleaner...
you mean the component cables are making it look junky.
Those were not component cables. Those were that's a whole other step up from what we were using on a Nintendo 64.
Oh yeah, N64.
I mean, I still remember, like, you had to get the I don't even know what this is called, like the RF, where, like, you had to go to channel 3 if you had your TV, and it was like, what was I can't even fathom.
I remember that.
What we had to do to play a video game in our youth. Ridiculous things.
How did we even figure that
Crazy
out?
things.
Yeah, now we have, like, the switchers that you can just go from HDMI to
cables.
HDMI.
Look at you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no.
Ooh, what a time that was. Okay. Well, good for you.
Yes. We have been working on, before I fell sick, the latest Super Kit and Krysta 64, which is, you had a great comment that we need to prepare for a challenging situation with the Switch 2 and getting a Switch 2.
Yeah.
So we should find something that would let us stand in a line, potentially fight with people, deal with
horrible retailers. So we decided to try and get some of the newest sets of Pokemon cards that were coming out recently. My goodness.
And we did just that. We will not spoil the result, but there is a lot of drama.
Drama ensued.
I wouldn't say we're really
ensued. Unexpected drama.
I wouldn't say we're really cut out to do this on a regular basis, but it was very eye-opening.
I definitely learned a lot from this experience. I just really was fascinated by this whole Costco brawling, people running of the bulls into the Costco for pallets of Pokemon cards, and then seeing, like, so much stuff out there about people just, desperately trying to get these, the scalpers, the retailers that are literally terrible and don't care about the customer at all. It was such a wild situation. It did really remind me of, what you have to deal with video game hardware launches. The last one I had to deal with was the Wii days, so I need to get some practice. That's been, like, a really long time. But now I'm ready. Come at me.
The tensions were running high. Like, I saw a pretty impassioned, like, some guy shouting at a security guard, which I'm not sure you should be doing.
That person saying, has a gun.
bro, you dropped the ball on this. Bro, you got to do better. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, the anger was real. Anyhow, there's so much drama in this episode. There was, like, it was so much fun, obviously, for us to just do this, and also very dramatic. So I'm excited to edit all this together for you guys. And of course we have our behind the scenes, like, vlog of our day-to-day stuff around this as well. So
yes, coming soon.
Look forward to it, please.
I did also want to just ask, so are we on Nintendo Direct Watch or not? Because there have been some loose talk about a original Switch oriented Nintendo Direct coming this month, but people seem to not necessarily be super, like, strongly holding on to that idea. It's like, well, it might be, it won't be. I haven't heard about a specific date. Like, I don't really know how to feel about it right now.
Yeah, my feeling is that I'm not ruling out that there could be a Switch 1 focused Nintendo Direct this month. The days are a little limited now, though. We got PlayStation just announced their state of play. I mean, that doesn't really matter, but it's happening, like, in the next couple of days.
Well, that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. Okay. And then there's Pokemon Day and the stuff around that. So the days are a little numbered. I'm again, not ruling it out, but I can also see Nintendo taking the route of just doing some Twitter drops for the remaining announcements for Switch, original Switch. They've done that in the past, and that's been fine. But yeah, I feel like people are not like out there very definitively saying like this is happening, and I sort of feel the same way. And also the people that are doing the thing where you share the historical dates of all the directs from the past, like that doesn't really mean anything because, Nintendo doesn't operate that way. So even if they've done it in the past around that time, there's really no guarantee. It's not like they're going back and looking at the calendar and saying, oh yeah, we did a direct in February around this
it's
date.
time for us to do one of those
time
again.
For us to do another one.
one.
They definitely do not operate that way in terms of deciding strategically whether or not to do one. And this is a weird time for them. They got Switch 2 stuff in April. They're in the limbo land right now. So I can see them doing something different and not having one. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that they do need to add some more games for the original Switch. Now would be a good time to do it before we get into, the full-on Switch 2 blitz.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that they could accomplish that. So whether it's a Nintendo Direct or some other way, I think they would, they kind of accomplish the same thing. So I think we'll wait and see kind of how this develops before we get into a full-on tizzy over it.
Yeah, I'm not in a tizzy at all. I was in a tizzy earlier this year.
Oh.
No, I'm no longer in a tizzy.
Tizzyless, okay.
I'm tizzyless.
Got it.
Yes. Tizzyless.
Well, let's get you back into the tizzy, talking about what Nintendo's doing to prep for the Switch 2. But first, of course, we have to shout out our wonderful sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Raycon. This is the season of love. Valentine's Day is right around the corner, literally days away. It is time to acknowledge our unique love languages. And there's only one thing that we can agree on. That's the love of sound. You can discover true love's perfect pair, Raycon's everyday earbuds. Boy, the people at Raycon were cooking with that copy.
They're cooking.
Whoa.
They're cooking. You know what you guys should do? Make a playlist for your crush.
Oh.
That still works. I remember making and getting playlists on a CD. I'm dating myself, okay? And it was just an exhilarating moment, and it doesn't cost any money. If you go now, it's so easy. Go on Apple Music, make a playlist, send it to your crush. Come on, I love it. I love a playlist.
However
you
make
listen to it with the
you can
Raycon.
Listen to it on your Raycon everyday earbuds. Yeah. I think you and I use these literally as the product name implies.
Yes,
every day, so comfortably fit into your ear. Do not fall out of your ear.
Yes,
this is the greatest thing. I've had so many other earbuds just fall out, you lose it. It's
gross.
Plop on the floor under the bed. Now it's like, oh, geez, my day's ruined. Forget this.
Yeah. I take it on my walk every single day. I love that it has some noise canceling as well because I live in the city and it's a little noisy here walking down the street. It's very light. I like that about it. It's like it doesn't feel like you really have something in your ear. It's so comfortable and light. And yeah, it's just nice and it's simple and it works. Great battery life, and literally I use this every single day, and I've been using it every single day for 2 years, and it's great. I love it.
Yes, 32-hour battery life, and if you ever do need to charge it, you can get if you charge it for just 10 minutes, you can get 90 minutes of battery out of that. So no sitting around twiddling your thumb waiting for the thing to charge. So go to buyraycon.com/KitandKrysta to get up to 20% off site-wide.
Wow.
That's right. You get up to 20% off everything on Raycon's website, including 20% off all headphones too. When you go to buyraycon.com/KitandKrysta. That's buyraycon.com/KitandKrysta.
I'll put the link right over here and also in the description, and a QR code so you can easily scan it. Wow.
Yes. All right. So with the Switch 2 Direct, we're sub 2 months away for that now.
Looming.
I do think it's good to say, it is like a point of transition where up to the original reveal is probably a very, very, very small group of people who were working on this, getting involved. But now the number of people involved is starting to get relatively large, and all these other teams who maybe were waiting to get the signal to get tapped on the shoulder, they're now jumping in to help.
Yeah. Producer Stephanie was talking about a really interesting thing, which is disclosures, and that is something that Nintendo does inside the company when it comes to, unannounced things. It's like a very small group of people. It's like if you don't need to know, you're not gonna know. And even producer Stephanie, when she was working with us on the original Switch launch, like she didn't know until the thing is announced. So now there, like you were saying, like now there is this huge influx of people that know. And now there's going to be this bigger group sort of working on and working towards this Nintendo Direct. The other thing is that, just sort of a bigger comment, is that like they honestly didn't tell us too much with the very short 2-minute reveal trailer. So there's a lot of details and a lot of new information that is going to be shared in this direct, and there's going to be a lot of teams working to get those details like shored up. And just again, I was saying at the beginning of this, is like a very intricate puzzle of everything coming together, and everything needs to come together, and there's so many people involved, there's so much room for error, that it is a bit of a pressure cooker time for the people on the inside. And yeah, well, we're going to go through it, and we're going to talk about all the different teams and what they're working on, and what they need to do to make this successful. But yeah, this is all, this has been happening, and it's happening intensely inside the company at this very moment.
Yes, let's start with the Nintendo Direct team, which interestingly enough is not like a standalone team. It's kind of a group that gets called into action when a Nintendo Direct is coming. It includes people from our old team, communications, Treehouse, third party, and the Nintendo Direct originates out of Japan, but once they know that one is coming, they get together and they all have kind of very clearly defined roles now about how they get involved. But they are definitely deep in it right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this was such a wild thing to think about, that when Nintendo Directs first began, there was no team at all to like coordinate all of this stuff. So it was just this like chickens with the heads cut off, like running around herding cats situation. People were like going absolutely bonkers and like losing their minds. And all sorts of like insanity was ensuing. And then they, like years later, they're like, hey, maybe we should you know start up an actual team to handle these, since we're going to be doing these pretty regularly. And that was when the Nintendo Direct team was formed. And you were on it for a little while, and then there was somebody else on our team that was tapped to do it. And it's not really a job that people want. It's
not a fun job.
It's not a fun job. It's a very tough job. You might think like, oh, how fun. You'll get to know all of the announcements before they get announced. That's neat. It's really not worth it to know the stuff. It's like actually like horrible, because you're just like a project manager for everybody in the company plus everybody globally. And it's really hard. And they have to do a lot of stuff coordinating with Japan, because that is where like the scripts are being developed, and the thing is being filmed, and the actual footage for the directs, that's where it's coming from. So there's a lot of coordination with the Japan team to get everything localized and translated. So they're working really hard on doing all that stuff right now.
Yeah, and in addition to just the endless work of making the Nintendo Direct, you're also in this role of communicating out of like, I have information, who do I need to share it with, who needs this information? And that can be a whole other job in and of itself, because there's a lot of people out there who do need it. You need to be very precise in giving them the information, because a small error can be a big problem. And you do need to pay attention to it, like, well, who is allowed to know this at any given moment? Because people will just come out of the blue and be like, well, what can you tell me? And it's like, well, I actually can't tell you anything until, the thing airs. So thanks for asking, but go away.
Goodbye.
Yes.
Yeah, the other thing is that there's sometimes like differences between the regional directs. This one I think will be a little bit less different. I think mainly the like probably like 99.9% of the stuff in the Switch 2 Nintendo Direct will be like the same globally, but there is a chance that there is like some small variations in the Direct that needs to be addressed. And that means, making sure that the scripts are translated correctly to include like your own regional information. A lot of times there's like legal stuff with hardware too, and like different like retail manufacturing, like disclosures and stuff like that, or like like really boring stuff that you
or when
would
they'll
think.
have the slate that's like Nintendo Switch 2 launches on blah 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 and costs blah
Yeah,
blah blah. Like they got to make sure that that's all correct in all those different
yeah,
versions.
exactly.
So yeah, they're working on all the scripts and translating those and getting those. I think there's probably a lot of iteration to that
Mm-hmm.
because things are changing and they're changing fast, and
Yeah.
people are trying to finish games, finalize games.
Yeah.
I've always thought like we've always seen like, oh, there's some huge day one patch for the hardware. Like if they're talking about some hardware features, some hardware, some system software, they might need to really go down to the wire of like, well, is it going to have this thing, or is that going to be in the next
Mm-hmm.
patch down the road? So it's going to be a bit more of a hairy situation of getting the actual script figured out.
Yeah, version control is really dangerous in this
Yeah.
moment. Like you could be looking at, and this comes back to that point you were saying about communicating the information. Like some people are going to use that script. Like we on our team, our old communications team, that was like our main source of information and truth is the script. And sometimes you're reviewing the wrong version of the script, and you can have the wrong like not the completely up to date information. You're not using the latest info to create what you need to create for your stuff, and that can really cause a huge problem. And I do think that this one is especially tricky because there's not only hardware and maybe UI stuff that's going down to the wire, but probably game stuff too. Like the game lineup is probably like just rapidly changing as people are getting, the development teams are getting the demos together and the trailers together. Like, is that feature going to be in it? No. Yes. Like, is the character, we're going to show this character or not? Are these parts of it ready? Like, that is just so much stuff to keep track of. Imagine the person that has to do that, and the pressure to not get it wrong because everybody is dependent on this like one source of information.
Yeah, if you think, oh, at this point they've got it all figured out and they're just kicking back, waiting for the thing to happen, like, no, they absolutely don't. There's like every day there is some new update that needs to get communicated, that people need to understand, and what's true one day could be not true the next day, could be back on the next day. So you just need to be really flexible and not get too like locked in on any one thing, because like everything could change day to day. Like that needs to be your mindset.
Yeah, that was totally something that we learned through the fire of what it was like to do these. The people that were not successful in this job were people that were like very rigid and was like, I can't accept change. And they would just like drive themselves crazy, because it would be such a rapid fire changing every day. But yeah, so while the Nintendo Direct team leads are like trying to keep all the information where it should be and the versions correct and communicating that out to people, there is a team that's on the ground in Japan, like doing the actual filming. They're out there with the developers. Probably, we talked about this last week, Mr. Takahashi and Mr. Koizumi, who have been in many other Nintendo Directs in the past and really has become sort of the faces of the Nintendo Directs. They're probably going to be getting ready to do a big shoot, to share any information about Switch 2, about the games. And there might be even more developers involved, depending on which games are going to be launching or going to be talked about in this Direct. So it could be, Miyamoto, it could be Yabuki, it could be anybody, could be additional people that are going to be filmed for this.
Well, to that point, I'm really interested about like what format this will take, because we don't really have a comparison point. With the original Switch, we had the October 2016 reveal video. And then in January, they had that live event, which was really serving the purpose of what this Direct is doing here, of like, all right, we're going to give you the big info dump and you're going to see all the games and get all this info. And for an event like that, you have to have people on stage coming up and talking. obviously a Nintendo Direct is going to be a lot cleaner, but I think they are going to try and go out of their way to make it feel big, make it feel special. And then again, like, they may have some other little info beat once those live events do eventually kick off. But yeah, it's kind of an uncharted territory of like, how are they going to approach this Nintendo Direct? Because I do expect it to feel different than your run-of-the-mill thing that we've been getting for the past 7-8 years.
Yeah, that's true. Like, they're not going to have that big like stage presentation moment that they did for the original Switch launch. This is going to be, on the surface at least, it feels more like a traditional Nintendo Direct. But yeah, curious to see what they'll do. I'm actually also curious, and we'll get into this department in a little bit, but in terms of developers, like, are they going to include any third-party developers? For example, if the Final Fantasy VII Remake games are coming to Switch 2, will Square Enix be a part of this Direct? I mean, they typically don't do that because they have like separate third-party directs, but this is another way to make it feel different, to make it feel special, to like really drive home the point that Switch 2 is going to have amazing support from huge third-party publishers, and we're going to bring all the big third-party games to Switch 2, and you can finally play these on Switch 2. So that might be something that they're working on as well, is how do they incorporate that, and how does it like work within the format of their typical Nintendo Directs?
Yeah, and I think last week we talked about how, Nintendo has moved away from including their people in these videos, but if you have people from third parties, that kind of forces your hand of like, well, it's weird if we just show people from a third party but not from a first party. And if it is a new, a big studio that you want to emphasize, or a series that you haven't had for a long time, or that you're getting for the first time, like a Square Enix with the Final Fantasy, I think it makes sense to let them come up and do a little welcome and say hello. And that does make it feel big and different. So that would kind of push us in the direction of like, yeah, well, we probably will see some Nintendo people in this as well to kind of set this up and talk to us.
I do think we'll see more than just the typical Mr. Takahashi and Mr. Koizumi. I do feel like that is in the cards for this one, and I'm excited about that. I think it'll be nice to hear directly from the devs, like, about the game that they're making for Switch 2 and why they're excited about it, and third-party devs too. I think that's an important thing for them to do to make this feel different and successful, is to show us and let us hear from the people that are actually doing the work on this, So I hope that happens. I have high hopes that that's going to be part of it.
One other thing that this team leads that may or may not happen is all of the pre-promotion around the Nintendo Direct. So when you see those posts, it comes like, tune in for roughly 40 minutes of blah, blah, blah. So they've already done a lot of the pre-promotion. Like, we know the time, we know the date, we know it's a Switch 2 Nintendo Direct, but I am wondering, are they going to, the day before, the week before, going to hit us with a bit more expectation setting of what this is going to be? I think we probably will see that, because the expectation setting is everything. But that is something that this team kind of leads and negotiates and puts out there.
You would not believe the rounds of versions for that one tweet.
Roughly seems to work for everybody. Everybody loves roughly.
Yeah, roughly seems to work. And then sometimes they'll add on something like roughly blah, blah, blah time, focused only on stuff for X. Like, they'll tell you, like, don't expect us to announce news for
Switch 3? Are you talking about Switch 3?
We're talking about Switch 3. We can wait about
the rumor mill is swirling about Switch 3 already.
Yeah.
Yes.
Talking
Switch 2
only
Pro?
about games launching within the first 3 months of this, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, they might expectation manage you in some way.
But anyway, I really feel for this team over the next 2 months, especially if they have a Switch 1 Nintendo Direct to squeeze in there as well.
Yeah,
like, that's
I hope
just
they don't.
a lot to bite off and a lot to deal with, and just a lot of pressure and a lot of people kind of banging on your door every single day.
Yeah, they're not sleeping for sure.
No, they're not. But if you're on social media and happen to see somebody posting that GIF from the Avengers of them eating shawarma, they may have worked on the Nintendo Direct. That's something we see sometimes. That is kind of the de facto "we did it."
Yes,
kind
we
of
did
post.
it.
Yes,
or like we worked really hard. We hope you enjoy what you see. Kind of thing.
Exactly.
You got to give them a little bit. They're not really allowed to say much about the work that they do. It kind of stinks. They're really working so hard in the background, and no one really thinks about the work that goes into putting on a Nintendo Direct. I mean, obviously everyone's just excited about what's in it. So you got to give them give them something, give them a little credit, you know.
All right, let's talk about some other teams. Let's go back to our old team, Communications, which is also starting to feel the grind right about now.
Oh yeah.
One of the things they have to do, which is hard work, is making. We've talked about this before. It's called a Q&A, which is anticipating every potential question that somebody could ask about the system, the games, you name it, and coming up with like what is the approved company answer to it. And for something like this, there's almost an endless number of questions that you could come up with. So that is definitely underway now, that process of coming up with a list and starting to piece together the answers. And what's hard is like you have to knock on a lot of doors to get the answers. Like you might need to go talk to the treehouse, you might need to go talk to legal, you might need to talk to third party. And over time, the information gets in there and filters in and everybody checks it, and you have this final thing, but it's a lot of work to get there.
And this is the area where it can be like high danger zone, because you might be working off of a script that has changed, and you have to keep really good track of all the things that have been updated, the things that have been removed. Like there's been instances where in a Q&A, there have been answers to questions or confirmations to stuff that was no longer in the direct. And if someone had an old version of that Q&A or was memorizing or reviewing a slightly outdated version of it, you might accidentally tell somebody that answer that was taken out, and then you'd be in big trouble.
And we have also seen some showdowns between the person doing the Q&A, leading that, and the spokespeople who are asking fairly, when is this going to be done? I need to study it and I need to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, no fault of their own, the Q&A person says like, hey, like we were saying, these things go down to the wire. Like I'm constantly getting updates. Like you're just going to have to be able to, you know, deal with the rolling changes. And we've seen some really like nasty conversations result as a part of that. Like, well, you're setting the spokespeople up to fail. I can't do my job, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to take the heat for this, blah, blah, blah. So it is, you know, there are tensions associated with all of this.
Yeah, it's a big document. Like when we say mega, it's like 300 questions, 400 questions. Like one time I printed a Q&A and it was an entire ream of paper. Like I printed it for somebody and it was literally an entire ream of paper, because it was like all the Q&A for that event plus all of the Q&A forever. And it was crazy. And as a spokesperson, and you and I were both spokespeople for many of these really, you know, big events, including the event for Switch, you are expected to memorize that Q&A. You're expected to understand how you're supposed to answer every single one of those questions. And if someone asks you, you are expected to give the approved answer. You cannot deviate from the approved answer. It was frowned upon to even say stuff like, I don't know the answer to that, but let me find out for you. You can say that in a pinch, like if you really just like are bombing, but like that was like a failure. Like if you did that, you're like, oh, you didn't study the Q&A long enough. And sometimes you would get the Q&A like the night before. You're like literally pulling an all-nighter trying to review the Q&A. So it is a lot of work putting it together. It's a lot of work to, you know, ensure the information is correct. Is a lot of work for the spokespeople to memorize that Q&A. And it's just a lot of work too, to like prep the spokespeople on the Q&A too. So like part of the job that we had, not only were we spokespeople, but we also would like prep like Reggie or Doug on how to do an interview. And we were joking around a little bit, but we also are pretty serious that like Doug is probably really a little nervous,
anxious,
you know? A little anxious. He'll play the Mad Libs again. A little anxious with his boba tea on a pogo stick. But you know, he hasn't done these interviews for a long time. I think we looked back, it was like 2.5 years ago or something. So he's a little out of practice in terms of how to do these. And yeah, and the people prepping him, they're going to take some extra care to make sure he feels as confident as possible, because it is true that like, you know, he might be a little out of practice. So yeah.
And there was always one person who led these kind of high stakes, high pressure fake interviews I don't believe he was from one of our agencies. I don't believe he's there anymore.
He's not.
So that is not a job that just anybody can do to get the person being interviewed to feel the heat and be a kind of scared and feel the pressure, which you kind of need to in that situation to get that trial by fire. So that is something that's a little bit different from a personnel standpoint.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of writing involved too. Like, not only are you writing like 400 questions and answers, you're writing a press release that's going to go out alongside the Nintendo Direct that has, a summarization of all the info in there. You're also making these like documents that basically like this is the way you want to communicate about Switch 2. Like, if you only had, 2 minutes to tell somebody what Switch 2 is and what makes it cool, the communications team is like writing all of those pieces for a person like Doug Bowser or any other spokespeople to say during an interview. So again, it's just like a lot of writing and making sure your information is correct, making sure you're working with so many different teams to check that the information is correct and the wording is perfect, and then teaching it to people so that they can say it and recite it in a way that they don't sound like robots and like not make a mistake and say the wrong thing. So again, it's like this really, pressure cooker situation where you're dealing with just the volume of information is so huge. And then the stakes are really high because you're like then passing it on to like a Doug Bowser to say, and you better make sure he's saying the right thing, because he's going to come back to you and be like, why'd you let me say that? I wasn't supposed to. And that's going to be your fault.
One last thing on the Q&A. We have seen it be from time to time this forcing function for the company to just make a decision about how something is going to work, where, we would send a first draft and it's like, well, they haven't exactly figured this out. And it's like, well, how is my Nintendo account going to connect to the eShop? And they're like, well, we're looking into two different things. It's like, buddy,
decide.
We're doing this, these interviews. People are going to ask this. We need to know. And they're like, okay, well, we'll get down to actually making a decision. So that is interesting that actual business decisions get made because people are going out and talking about this stuff.
That's true. Yeah, there's always like blanks in the Q&A. You have to track down the answer. And it's always surprising that the decisions haven't even been made yet. You're like, we're like 2 weeks away from this thing. So you better decide now.
Yeah.
Well, we're still thinking. I'm like, nope, time's up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're also probably planning a big event for media content creators to come and do the hands-on, just like the people,
the lottery, people.
Who literally won the lottery to go play the Switch 2, which is why, we kind of laughed when, people like Jeff Keighley were getting salty about not winning that lottery because he knows he's getting, the red carpet event to come and play this thing before anybody else. So that's something that this team takes on. So, don't worry if your favorite content creator didn't make it, unless it's us, because we're definitely not getting invited because they will be taken care of with this big event before any actual normal person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My thinking is that they have a few days before the event opens up to the public. Lottery winners that is for media and content creators. Absolutely, they're going to be getting a chance to go hands-on. Nintendo obviously wants all that coverage of people playing the games and holding the Switch and all that stuff. Like, that's important part of this launch. So
and lastly, the other thing this team is responsible for is just the nonstop reports.
Oh my God, the reports.
Daily reports, flash reports, sentiment report, you name it. Like, people love these reports. People go gaga for the reports. People want them. And this is the team that has to churn those out.
The sentiment reports were always the really like lamest of the lame fluff reports. When you see like a word cloud in a report, you really know like you are grasping at straws making this report, sir.
Yeah.
The word cloud's like excited. It's like in giant letters. It's like no freaking yes, of course they're excited.
It's hard because all these big companies use like these social tools to help them track sentiment, but
I don't think it works.
The use of the language is so fluid. Like, there are uses of the word that get flagged as negative when it's actually positive. So it's like take this all with a big grain of salt. And like people and you know, people love to argue with these. It's like, well, I was browsing Reddit and people looked very excited about this. You know, people
there's always some opinion from like the
Yeah.
one person that's like, based on my Twitter followers, they're excited. I'm like, well, your Twitter followers
that
are a
has
very
literally
small
happened.
percentage.
That's literally happened. Yes.
Yeah, there's always also been like, you know, slang words that no one gets.
Yeah.
That's in there. Like someone's gonna say like Switch 2 slaps, and someone's like, I don't understand what that means.
That totally breaks the tool that you're using to try and track the sentiment.
Yeah, exactly.
So
they need to update that with Gen Z.
Those are always a little bit dicey. But yes, we know the person who's responsible for these reports. We really feel for him. Let's talk about retail and sales.
Yes.
They got a lot to do.
They're busy. They're very busy. So they basically, how it works is like, as soon as this direct goes up, they have to get going on, well, the pre-orders will go up in their various, presumably in their various retailers. And the retail team, like everybody has like different accounts. So like somebody's in charge of like Walmart, somebody's in charge of Target, somebody's in charge of Costco, whatever, GameStop. So they basically are like, kind of like almost like a representative of that retailer. And it's interesting what happens, because the person that's like representing or leading that account becomes sort of like an advocate for that account as well. Like the GameStop person will oftentimes fight with the Target person, you know, at Nintendo, and be like, well, we deserve more allocation of Switch 2s because of XYZ reasons. And so it becomes like this kind of like turf war for which retailer gets what. And also there's obviously a lot of communication that's happening right now to ensure like pre-orders go up for the system, and also all the games after the direct, and like just figuring out those details around like, now that probably the launch date and price will be announced, like the retailers are going to be ready to do more than after that reveal.
Yeah, that is the big game of 4D chess that these salespeople are doing, is the allocation, because it is hard. Because, you know, you could say, okay, Nintendo of America, you were going to get 5 million pieces of hardware day one. You need to decide where every one of those goes. And you have big accounts like, you know, Walmart, Target, GameStop, and a decision needs to be made. And nobody wants to have less. If you're leading that account, you don't want to have less. Yeah. So it becomes very political. Of also, you know, the head of Walmart wants to know, like, are we getting more than Target? We need, you know, that would sure be great if we did.
It's like Game of Thrones.
It really is. This is why you need some unhinged people to work in sales, because it gets weird like that. But yes,
power struggle.
Somebody's flying. Walmart is headquartered in Bentonville, Arkansas. Somebody's flying out to kiss the ring and try and ensure the allocation.
And it's like weekly too. It's not even like they've just have to do it once in the time leading up to this. It's like from January until, or maybe even before, until like, you know, April, or like before the direct comes out, they have been going to Arkansas like weekly to figure this out and to like fight for their accounts. And yeah, it's really like, it's a really kind of tense situation. And it's interesting because they kind of turn on each other a little bit. Like you would think like, oh, we're all one retail team. Like, it doesn't matter. We'll like figure it out. Like, let's hold hands and skip. It's like, no, I will beat you, Target retail rep, to get more for my, you know, my account, which is like Walmart or something like that. So yeah, very, very political, very contentious. And yeah, a bit unhinged for sure.
Yes. This team is also responsible for all of the stuff that you see in a store. Like if there's a poster or some, you know, cool display, like they are making that and making sure that gets installed. They work with that team of people who are actually, now they're called Nintendo brand ambassadors, NBAs.
The NBAs, yes.
They're out in every kind of big city and region, like physically going to those stores to help oversee the installation of all of that. And then something that you may not see immediately, but you know that they're working on, is those interactives, like where there will physically be a Switch 2 in a store that some kid is locked in on, you know, getting all sticky and gross onto a Switch 2. Those take a long time to come together because they're pretty complex.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of hardware to go out there. So I wouldn't feel super confident saying like, oh, that'll definitely be there day one, but they're definitely starting to work about it and figure out how they're going to do this.
Yeah, most of the time they have like a pretty like intricate display for those two. Like it has like some video thing running, alongside the hardware. It's like in a glass case.
Yeah, I mean, the ones they have now are pretty cool. They're pretty slick.
Nice looking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they might just be able to use a similar design. But yeah, that actually is like Nintendo staff like putting those together and like working with the retailer to install it into their stores. And then like the regional Nintendo ambassador reps are going to make sure, every once in a while they'll go and check to make sure that the system is still working. They'll do maintenance on it. So it's like an ongoing kind of thing. It's not like you just send it to them and then you're like, bye, see you in 8 years. It's like an ongoing thing that they have to do. I do love the in-store signage. Whenever they would show us a dangler.
I love a dangler.
Love a dangler. I get pretty excited about the danglers.
I mean, this is an advantage that they have over their competition, is like this commitment to retail.
Yeah.
Like their retail spaces are really nice. And if you look at what Sony or Microsoft are doing in retail, it's like it's very bare bones.
Mm-hmm.
So Nintendo does really stand out. Like that is a form of marketing of like the experience of the customer in the store, and moving them from maybe being interested to actually buying the thing with what your presence is in the store. Like that counts, and they take that really seriously. And it sometimes feels a little strange that the other companies have just kind of bailed on this.
Especially for people that are not like paying attention to every single announcement that Nintendo is putting out there. Like they're not really the ones watching every Nintendo Direct. Like you need another way to get them to like learn about your new stuff.
Yeah, like if grandma's taking Timmy to Target to buy glue sticks for his project, and he stumbles on the interactive and is playing Mario Kart 9, she'd be like, oh my, I better buy this for little Timmy here.
Timmy's birthday's coming right up.
Sure is.
We got
Easter, dads and grads, so many ways to buy.
Oh, tax season.
Tax season. Yes, get your tax return.
Dads and grads.
Dads and grads. Love dads and grads. All right, that's enough about them. Treehouse.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Treehouse.
The spoon that stirs the drink. Treehouse. So, we talked about like this act of the daily updates coming in and making sure that all the relevant people know this. Like this is really what they are the recipients of all of these updates. Like, somebody might get this like very long email from a dev team overnight, and it's like, we've changed the spec, or this thing is now going to be coming in a patch. Like they are the ones who receive that information.
Yeah, they are the product experts. That is their job, is that they just know the ins and outs of the product because they're the ones getting that information from the developers, and they're, chained to their desks, like playing the latest builds, really understanding what is, in each of these launch games, what the hardware specifics are. They're really like learning the ins and outs, the nitty-gritty details, and they have to pass that on and communicate that to everybody else. They have to sort of do the work of like distilling down the, again, huge volume of information that they're getting, distilling that down to like what is going to be most relevant, what is going to be most interesting about this game, about, the hardware that we want to make sure that, people know about and are communicating out. So that's kind of what they're doing. They're really just like leading, hands-on time so everybody can familiarize themselves with the system. They do this thing, which I'm very impatient. Like when we were, learning about new games, and we were about to, touch and play the original Switch, it's like you just like kind of want to get to it, and so you can form your own opinion. Especially people like us that we play games a lot. We don't really need the like holding way of you teaching me about what this is. Like I kind of get it. Like I know how to play a Zelda game. Like don't worry. But like they always make you sit through the world's longest presentation. It's like a 3-hour PowerPoint. It's like slide by slide. It's like, okay, here's the next game. Here are the 3 things that's interesting about this game. Here's what makes it different from the games in the past. And then like, here are the other things that we wanted, secondary messages we want you to talk about. It's like, I'm so bored. Just let me play the game. I would love to just for you to stop talking and let me play the game. So they do that. I didn't really love it, but I get why some people need it.
Yeah, they definitely have, maybe not everybody, but they definitely have systems in that department. They're behind locked doors. It's impossible to get in there.
Yeah.
Their people are going hands on. They're getting the games. They're getting the updates. So they're doing their job of knowing this thing like nobody else does in the
Yeah.
company. Another big job that they're going to have is when the hands on events start, they're going to have to train all of those staff who they're going to hire. Those are hired staff in most cases who they bring in those cities, but they're not going to do it until after April 2nd. They're not going to risk giving this, very confidential information out to some rando in Dallas before that information is public. So that'll be a big undertaking for them after the direct actually
more
happens.
PowerPoints.
It's like right now, it's like, yeah, if people are approved to know the information, like we can take them through these games, we can show them these games, we can let them play what we've got. But there's layers to this, so eventually different layers will get access and get the information. So they're just doing a lot of repetition of sharing these presentations, doing these hands-on answering questions.
Yes.
It's very rinse repeat for them. Localization, which is also associated with the treehouse. They're also behind a locked door. They've been working for a long time. As far as people in NOA, they may have been working the longest.
Right.
On, working with the dev teams on their games. They do get input earlier and earlier, but localizing the games. If you have games that are like a day one game, they might be pretty far along with that. They may even be close to done.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
It. But nowadays, everything has a day one patch, so you never know. This is always interesting. For some people don't realize this. You have to localize the system software too.
Right.
So they need to work on that. Sometimes the system software gets a giant day one patch. So it's kind of no rest in terms of localizing all of the stuff. So they're probably, got waves of people working on that. And then as far as, this activity that we think Nintendo's going to do coming off of the Direct, they are often used as translators. They often will be used as VO staff in the Nintendo Direct. It's very interesting. They often pair, the Nintendo in Japan developers have kind of dedicated contacts in localization. So you'll often hear the same voice just because they kind of know the way that person speaks, know the information that they want to convey. So they have like a long-term relationship with them as far as being a translator, which is maybe not something you would have expected.
Yeah. It sort of becomes like that person's proxy in terms of their English voice. And it's nice because it does get it feels familiar when you hear the translator's voice associated with that person. So yeah, they kind of get locked into it's a commitment. Like once you start doing it for that one person, you're like kind of that guy,
Yeah.
And whenever that person has to do a thing like a Nintendo Direct or an interview or whatever, like you have to be there. You have to be there to translate and be that guy. So yeah.
Design, also another team that gets involved very early. One of the I'm always amazed the packaging, the templates for what a game package looks like.
Yeah,
they've got that done so far in advance. It was always amazing.
Years.
When did you guys do this?
Yeah, it's
they were like, we finished that a long time ago.
Yeah. They're doing a lot of stuff like, the obviously the packaging for the hardware, the package designs for the new, hopefully the new game cases, because you might want them to look different than an original Switch. They're also doing that thing where, all of the stuff that gets revealed in the Nintendo Direct will have a finalized folder of approved visuals. And so they will have this huge depository of all of the approved hardware shots for Switch 2. They will have, stills, box art, screenshots, character illustrations for every single game that was in the Direct. They'll have all of the logos for everything. And obviously this is for the rest of the team to use for all of their stuff. You're supposed to be pulling the final designs to use in all of your marketing materials and again, sometimes there have been mistakes. I made a mistake once where somehow I was using an asset with a missing layer or whatever, and it caused some problems. So yeah, this is another area where like you have one source of getting the approved stuff. You better make sure that you're double checking to make sure that that stuff is correct and you're using it the right way. They have these style guides that's like, you can't use a logo in these ways and you have to follow those rules. It's like a lot of stuff to take in, and they're really like the keepers of all that information. Nintendo's very, very strict with the design of stuff, as we've talked about in the past. Like the IP team is very strict. They're very strict about how you can use all of the character art. Don't flip that character now. That was another thing that happened to us where we had, Mario, but someone flipped it. So it was like facing the other way. And that was a huge issue, huge problem. So yeah, a lot of stuff that design is handling right now, and a lot of like things that you have to go ask them if you can do something with the stuff that they have.
They're also one of a couple departments that includes Treehouse and Legal, where once this gets going, like they just have every day stacks and stacks of things to review and approve.
Yeah.
Which is really hard part of the job. Again, so like if retail marketing wants to make a dangler to go into a store, like they have to send it through all these teams who know it the best and get it approved. And, it's that times 1,000 because everybody's making something or working on something to go on a website or go out or, show up somewhere else. So that they are getting ready for the onslaught of approval requests.
They make those designs too. Like if you need them to make, if you need something, like you need like a dangler or you need a poster.
I need a dangler.
Or you need a sign, like they have to make it. So you
Sir,
have to
this is a Wendy's.
Sir, you have to ask.
They have a Whopper, not a dangler.
Can I have both? Why not both? Yeah, you have to like put a request in to get a graphic designer to make your stuff for you. And then you have to send it through for approvals. And then you can make it. So it's like a lot. It's a long process when you have no time. It's like very, very challenging.
Content Lab, I feel like we've kind of talked about a lot of their things. One other thing that they're responsible for is helping the advertising team. Mm-hmm. So I would expect that there's going to be an onslaught of like digital ads starting from with the pre-order push, the big awareness push, and they have to make these. And the thing that's hard for them is they have to cut these for all these different specifications. It's like, well, this one needs a vertical, this one needs it this way, this one needs it in this resolution.
15
it's like
second, 30
and it's
seconds.
Like I have one piece, but I'm delivering it a dozen different ways. So they're just perpetually behind, unfortunately. But advertising always gets to the bump to the front of the line because they got money.
Yeah,
money talks.
Yeah, money talks. This is where, again, fights can ensue because oftentimes the comms team, the social team, will have fights with the advertising team because we would need Content Lab to make stuff for social. We need social assets as well. But they never had time for us because they were making the ads. And so there would be big fights. And
sometimes there would be a threat. What if I made my own GIF?
Oh, you can't.
Huh? What if I did that? I can do it. I can have that thing up tomorrow.
No, you can't.
This Donkey Kong rolling GIF? No, I can do it right now. No, that's why you're going to see a Donkey Kong GIF in like July.
4 months.
Because that's when they can finally get around to it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not allowed to make your own stuff,
no.
But they don't have time to help you. So you're trapped in a constant like fight. And then you get salty, very salty towards the advertising team because you're like, oh, that stupid ad of that little guy, the little boy playing the Switch 2 again? They needed another one of those? That's so annoying. We don't care. And then they would never make our social assets and we'd be mad. Anyways.
Events, they have a huge job with all of these hands-on events, which are being billed as kind of like the next thing after the Nintendo Direct, but they've been working for a long time. I'm sure months ago they were scouting venues, trying to decide. I'm very curious how did they decide on those 3 cities? LA, Dallas, New York. Obviously, they wanted West Coast, kind of Central, East Coast. But I mean, there's a lot of other options. So I'm sure they went to literally every one of those cities and looked at different venues and came to the conclusion of like, well, these these
the best
locations are
ones.
the best. These are the 3 best specific venues in those locations. So they, they don't necessarily have or need a ton of Switch 2 informations, but they do need to know, hey, we're doing a huge hands-on event. We need to find a way to make that work because this thing's getting announced alongside the system itself.
Yeah, exactly. And they've been doing this, they are not like literally working on this right now. They've been doing this for months now. So yeah, this takes time, finding venues, getting staff hired, figuring out this lottery thing that they did, like, making the visuals. I'm sure it's going to look really cool in there with lots of.
If they
cool
don't have the Yoshi's Cafe, the Yoshi's Diner from the
Oh,
Mario
from
Kart
Mario
little
Kart,
snippet,
you're going to be mad.
I'm going to be mad because I expect that.
Okay.
They always have some fun little visual elements.
Need to have photo ops.
They know people want photo ops. That would be a really great
They're
one.
good at this.
This is one of the most capable teams.
They're like the best.
At Nintendo, like you do not ever need to worry about them doing incredible work.
It's going to look so good.
Yes.
It's going to look so cool. They're going to do such an amazing job. I can't wait for us to see what it looks like.
But at all of these venues, they have to hire all the staff. That could be, I don't know, 100 people, however many that they need to staff all of these interactives and move people through that, train them. Yeah. That's a huge undertaking. They're probably working with other teams on the mechanics of the lotteries, but they did still have to give them guidance on that of like, here's how it's going to work. Here's how at the event itself, people will sign in. We've seen firsthand at Nintendo Live, that can often be a bit clunky.
Yes,
just a little clunky.
It can be a little bit bad. We'll see how it goes.
Yes.
The other thing they have to do is getting all this stuff, like the demos, ready for people to play too. Like that's a huge undertaking. Like think about hundreds of demos you have to like put on systems, and all that stuff needs to be secure. The scary Nintendo security staff will be there in case there's any funny business. So yeah, there's just a lot. An event is such like a big undertaking. Like towards the end of our time there, we were very like resistant to do any big events. We used to do like a lot of like PR stunts or PR events as a way to like get people talking about something, but it's just so hard to do one of these. It's like almost not worth it, And
they have to do some kind of problem solving, based on the specifics of the system. So that, the mouse functionality of this new Joy-Con, if I'm at an interactive and I'm standing up, how do you do it? Facilitate that? Do I need to put a table? Do I need something coming out of the TV? Like they need to work with Treehouse to get the information of how this actually works and propose a number of solutions that are going to give people the best experience possible. So that's tricky stuff that they need to be on top of.
Yeah, that's going to be tough for them. There's definitely going to be some like wrinkles to this event that's very different than a typical, Nintendo Switch or just what they do at PAX or what they do at other other events. There's going to be some wrinkles for sure.
The list goes on forever, but let's do one more department. Third party, which with every new hardware system just takes on a bigger and bigger role, and they're going to have it seems to be a huge role for this Nintendo Direct and just going forward. And we should say like they're a relatively small team. Like every team at Nintendo is relatively small, but based on the number of contacts and partners they have to work with, they're just swamped.
Yeah.
And that's something that you hear is like, oh, I'm trying to get, I'm making a game. I'm trying to get in touch. I can't reach anybody. It's like,
well, there's 2 people there. So
they're just swamped. And it's kind of an unfortunate truth of the way that they operate. And they need to prioritize, especially now, the big partners who are going to have day one games or major new announcements that they need to emphasize. So, and I imagine there's a lot of indie developers out now who want to get a dev kit. Say, hey, you have announced this. Can I get a dev kit? They need to facilitate all of that. Like they just have so many different things that they're responsible for, but never felt like they could be 100% on top of all of it.
Yeah, they're not staffed. They're not staffed up in the right way for this. But yeah, they've got a lot to do just in terms of the Direct itself too. Yes, they have a lot of work to do, just like making sure the launch games are ready to go for when the system comes out. But from just the direct perspective, they have a lot of work to do. They're like helping to really nail down and communicate with the third party developers, like where is their game going to be placed in this direct. Like they're getting all the assets from the devs and delivering all those final assets to the Nintendo Direct team. They're doing like all that work communicating, what is the third party publishers, developers communication plan to the Nintendo communications team, so there can be some coordination there. Like, are we going to tag each other? Are we going to be included in the press release? Like, what is the plan for communicating all of the big third party games coming to Switch 2? So that's just, again, a lot of coordination and details to keep track of it. And same thing, like as the first party games change every day, the third party games are probably changing every day as well. Like they're cutting new trailers and taking things in and out, and features are getting finalized, and details are getting confirmed. Like that's all happening from the third party side as well. So you're not only kind of doing that, version management, version control for the first party stuff, you're doing that for the third party stuff as well. So it just adds to the chaos.
And speaking of the chaos and the stress, like we have seen, this version of a power struggle happen where, third party might be pushing for a game to be in a Nintendo Direct, and somebody from Treehouse will pipe up and say, like, I don't think the quality is there. I don't think it's deserving of a spot. And depending on the game, sometimes they were pushing something that maybe didn't deserve to be there, but now they have a bigger voice than they maybe did before, because by all accounts, it seems like they have a wide variety of really good games to choose from.
Yeah.
Partners who are very eager to be involved, partners who maybe were not super involved before. And so, yes, people are always going to come to a Nintendo system for the Nintendo games, but this is bringing a new element to it that's building on what the original Switch had. I'm expecting to see a really big and impressive lineup of third-party games in this Direct, and these are the people who are bringing that into the fold.
I think this is going to be the big differentiator for what makes Switch 2 like different and worth it, is the third-party support, and they need to come out with like juggernaut third-party developers to be part of this. I feel like this is like a key thing that needs to happen for, at least for me, to like really solidify, like, yeah, this will be a success. The system is going to be a success. So yeah, I can't wait to see what they're cooking on the third party side, because I have high expectations for the games that are coming to Switch 2 from the third party pubs.
Wow. I mean, we could have gone on and on forever. There's so many, like we didn't even mention QA, which is like kind of our bad, product because testing, they have a massive job and, kind of the unsung heroes of all of this. But yeah, like literally every department is doing some very specialized thing that they don't usually have to do unless it's a console launch year. So shout out to all of them. Good luck to all of them.
Yeah. Hopefully you're getting a little bit of sleep when you can, but it'll be over before you know it. It'll be over soon.
We asked our Patreon community how they would like to be involved in a new console launch if they had the chance to be involved. Got some interesting responses. We did a poll here. We'll go through the results. 39% said first-party development. That's not too surprising. 23% said marketing. Okay. 18% said quality assurance. I was a little surprised at that.
Yeah.
10% said localization, 9% said third-party development, and 3% said sales.
Sales is the hardest one.
I guess they've been listening to our disparaging comments about salespeople.
Sales is hard.
Yes.
Yeah. We got some great comments as well from our Patreon community. Kyle LaBeouf says, I think working as a first-party developer in this moment would be both extremely stressful and incredibly rewarding at the same time. Knowing that the onus will be on you to effectively demonstrate the technical capabilities and the unique features of the next hardware is no small feat. Very true. Nintendo is very capable of doing this, but that is high stress, high pressure situation.
Yeah, you're not just making any game. You're making a game that demonstrates what this new thing is capable of.
Yeah.
At a time where you may not know exactly what it's capable of if you have like a launch game. Like, you're kind of making some assumptions of what this system is going to be, and how you're going to build your game at a very early point, and you just kind of hope it all lines up and works out.
Yeah, scary stuff. Samus250 says, third-party development, particularly in providing technical tools, technical demonstration, etc. I would love to help all third-party developers of all sizes, from the one-person indie to the multi-billion-dollar companies from all parts of the world, until they all say that Nintendo is the best to develop for, and they adopt a Switch-first strategy. It's a good thing for other platforms too. If all games ran well on Switch, imagine how awesome they'd run on more powerful hardware. It's probably an impossible feat, but that's what I'd shoot for. That is a very big job. I mean, I've seen, a lot of developers today come out. I just saw a quote from the Monster Hunter developer actually about, someone had asked whether he'd bring Monster Hunter to Switch 2, and there was his answer was
what
very
did he
much
say?
It's not a no, but his answer was very much rooted in this idea of like, we don't know the specs of this hardware, we don't know the technical limitations. Like it is work to port things onto a different platform that has different specs, right? So this is a very important job that I think a lot of developers would really appreciate.
Yeah, it's kind of a specialized thing within third party, but it is really important. If you have a partner who's like, hey, we're new to this platform,
right?
We need some help. We just need to learn the basics. Like there are people who are there to help them figure that stuff out.
Yeah. Mr. Andy Pond says, I'm quite happy being the consumer, quite frankly. If I learned anything from listening to you two, it's that I enjoy playing my games and then hearing your stories of working on games, and I kind of want to keep it that way. Yes, I agree.
Very fair, very good.
Yes, after I've recounted this, busy few months that the Nintendo team is going through right now, I'm quite happy that I'm no longer there and just a consumer now. And lastly, from Aaron, Legal, smiley
Aaron.
face. Legal, Aaron. Are you one of the
ninjas? Legal likes being in Legal too.
Just here hanging out in the
They love
Discord?
it. They think it's great.
I love it. Wow. That is what the Nintendo team is up to right now. I'm sure they are looking forward to just, once you kind of like are in it, you just want to get to that finish line because at some point things are going to be out of your hands and it'll just work out. You can't stress anymore about it, and it's just gonna let it happen. So I think that they're probably getting close to that mindset. And April 2nd will come very soon, and then we'll be in a new phase, and then we'll see what the next phase is. But it's exciting.
And then they'll be on to the next crushing project.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what it's like there. So yes.
Let's move on to games we're playing.
Got a lot of games.
We've been multitasking on some games here. I'll do a quick little update on Super Metroid, which is our spoiler cast game for February.
Yes.
Knowing you've played this game for about an hour and probably expect that you are at the end, right?
No, I have been playing because I've anticipated you poking fun at me for not playing this game, but I've been playing this. I have been playing. I'm like probably like an hour behind you on this game at this point. I've gotten some very essential items and power-ups. This game still holds up very well. I will just say that. Like, I still am just like loving, like I loved this game when I first played it. Like every time I replay this game, it doesn't lose its luster, So yeah, I've been really enjoying it. And you know what? I just love the NSO features of like creating a little save point, rewinding. Because sometimes in a pinch, it is kind of nice. Like, oh, I don't want to do that part all over again. You just rewind, but like one little mistake that I made. I really like it. I know it's like a little cheap, but I really use it and I kind of enjoy it. So
for this playthrough in particular, I have been trying to really focus on this element of this thing we've noticed where people who maybe did not play Super Metroid in the moment and are coming to it now are kind of saying, well, I actually prefer Dread or some of the more modern Metroid games, and I don't necessarily understand why a lot of people put Super Metroid at the top of their list.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it so interesting, and I'm like, is this a generational thing? Is this just like, you know, a comparison thing? If you're going from new to old, you just feel that way. So I'm still trying to kind of sort out my feelings about that as somebody who did play it in the moment in 1994 when it first came out. But I think definitely one of the things that I see people knock it is the controls, maybe not feeling as tight as some other games. I have a hot tip for you.
Oh,
Did you know you can easily remap the buttons in the game itself? Like, I'm not talking about doing some NSO at the system level remapping, because you know, having the shoot and the jump buttons are in some, I would say, not standardized places for a lot of games today. I did remap my controls,
oh, okay.
And it's I'm liking it a bit more, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I at first I was like I needed to get used to it again because it is, you know, it did feel like a bit of a dated control scheme. But once I did get used to it, it wasn't bothering me that much. Maybe I just have muscle memory from
The
playing this game, you know?
the one that I really needed to change was, you know, you press select to cycle through your different
Oh
missiles
yeah.
and bombs and stuff. And I think it's on the original Super NES controller, like it was no problem to just get over there. But depending on like
Yeah.
if you're using a D-pad or like just going to that minus button,
This
it,
tiny
it
little
doesn't
minus.
like sometimes you need to pretty quickly cycle through in the heat of the moment. So
Yeah.
I actually put that on one of the face buttons so I could just bap, 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 you know, cycle through that. And
In
it's
a
actually
boss fight, you do need
it's
to
made
cycle.
it's made a good difference. The last time I played through this game on NSO, I didn't do that.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. That's actually a good idea.
I think it's worth just checking out because, you know,
Yeah.
it's easy to miss because the way, you know, you play these games on NSO is like once you start, you're not really going back to the main menu because
Yeah.
you have your save state and you just go straight to that. But if you actually quit out and go back to the main menu once you're started, you can remap those really easily.
Ah, okay. Well, that's a good tip. That's a good tip.
Okay, well, let's not get too deep into Super Metroid since we have a whole spoiler cast ahead of ourselves here. But you recently made a little trip over to our friends at Capcom.
Oh yes.
To play. Probably, I guess this is the final preview.
Yeah.
Of Monster Hunter Wilds because this game is coming out pretty soon here in like two-ish weeks.
Yeah, I think there's a beta going on right now as well that people have gotten a chance to play. But yes, I went over there and played pretty much like I would say the first like 2 to 3 hours of the game, and then I was jumped
uninterrupted from the very beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I was jumped to like a bit of a deeper save where I fought a really scary monster that you would dislike. It was a spider. So, but yes, we've been following this game very close. I feel like Capcom has been so great at just like keeping us in the loop with this game. I feel like we've gotten a chance to really play it so much throughout, like, you know, the last few months or whatever. So it's been kind of cool to see it like progress, and now, yeah, it's almost going to be launching, so it's exciting. But yes, I was able to play like the first 3 hours uninterrupted. It was so good. Like every time I play this game, I'm just more impressed by this game, and you know, it really does feel. And we've been saying this a lot, but like every time I play, it reinforces that they have really taken this to its next generation. Like this is truly feeling like the next gen Monster Hunter game. And we've played a lot of Monster Hunter games, you know, in our day. And the changes that they've made, the improvements that they've made, just the way that the game looks and feels, it just feels like this new era for Monster Hunter. And it's really cool, you know, like they do have this main quest, main storyline that is a big part of this game. There is a lot of new changes with how you sort of traverse the game. You have these like rides that you can get on, the sacreds, and there's a lot of new things you can do with that. There's a lot of new like fun control schemes that you have. You have this little like sort of what would you call it, like a grappling hook kind of thing. um
It's not really, or at least I haven't seen it be able to like swing around. But yeah, you
yeah,
can use it's like it's having one of those like ultra hands almost. It's like, oh, reach out and
yes,
grab
you
something, or
can
reach
grab
out
or
and pull
like
something.
poke something to pull it
Yes,
down.
that's very nice to have.
Yeah, very nice to have. The ability for you to have two different weapons is really, really fun. But then they also retained like the very, like, the bread and butter stuff of Monster Hunter that you play Monster Hunter for. The hunts feel really satisfying. You do really feel like you are very slowly taking down this like huge beast. We haven't gotten a chance to try the multiplayer yet. Well, we did it one time in Japan, but I would really like to
That was my
do.
first time playing that game, and I was quite overwhelmed
Yeah, you were
figuring out all
bad.
the controls.
Yeah, you were
Yes.
not a helpful You were not a helpful co-op person.
Oh.
But I think we were all excited because a ton of our old Nintendo buddies, they're all going to be playing this game, and so we're going to be doing lots of multiplayer. But they made the hunts feel like really epic. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole point of this game is like to hunt these huge beasts and then like make the armor, the cool armor. Um, and they haven't lost any of that, but they've added all these new things to just make it feel like very modern, very slick. Like you just feel like this is like, wow, this is truly like a next gen game. And then the last thing I will say that I'm just so excited about is the food looks so good in this game. Like they continue to have like the best looking food ever. Within the first 2 hours of that game, there's already two like food related quest happenings. One involved a bunch of palicos carrying a giant hunk of meat and almost getting eaten by a monster. And there was a great line from one of the NPC characters that was like, "Why don't they just put the meat down?" And it's really funny. And then they have another scene where you're in this. You're like you've been asked to dinner by one of the tribes in the area, and then they like make you like this meal. And they have this one scene where they're like, it looks like they're putting like melted mozzarella on like naan bread. Wow. I'm getting really hungry just thinking about it. It looks so good. It looks so delicious. I don't know what they're doing with the food, but
They have their
you can also
priorities
cook.
straight.
You can also cook your little meal too.
Sure.
And it's really, really cute the way that you like cook in your tent with a little frying pan and stuff. It's very cute.
Did you have a choice of weapons for this, or
Yeah.
so you went straight for dual blades?
Yeah, I'm dual blades and I'm using a bow as my secondary weapon now.
The regular bow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like it. It's fun because you can also ride on your sacred and fight. So the bow is great for that because if you are like you need a second to like take a potion or just like walk away for a little bit because you need to like sharpen your stuff or you eat a ration or something like that, like it's great to switch over to the bow and get a little range while you're on the sacred. And then you can do like this thing where you switch back to your maybe your primary weapon, and then you can do like a jumping like jump off the sacred, attack the monster, and that is always very satisfying. Like it just feels very like there's something about the action in the game that feels very like tactile and satisfying. Yeah, they also have these things now where like the monsters, they have wounds that you can like use your special on, and that's just fun to do, like especially with the dual blades. Like my favorite move is once you charge up your special, you can like target one of the wounds, and it does this crazy move where you like basically do this rolling thing off the spine of the monster, and it does like crazy damage, and you look really cool. So it's just fun. It's really fun.
Since you almost always play these games with the dual blades, have you noticed any difference about how that weapon works?
I haven't seen like a huge difference. Like there's definitely like positives and negatives to the dual blades. Obviously it's a really fast weapon, but you are doing like a lot less damage. You're just doing more damage over time because you're so fast. I do like the demon mode in this one because it is very like quick to switch to, and then you can use it to charge up your special. and do some different moves, like different combos. So I really like that about this version of dual blades. The other thing is that the thing about dual blades that's a little bit challenging is they dull very quickly. So you have to be ready to like sharpen like almost like multiple times during a fight. That's why I like having the bow as my secondary, because I can just switch to that and, you know, do a little damage and then like use a little, give myself a little time to sharpen the dual blades, because that is something that is one of the things that hold you back on dual blades, is it dulls pretty quickly.
To your point of wounding the monster and then jamming your blades into the wound, I have wondered, like, as this series goes along and these graphics get more and more detailed, like, is there going to be anybody like I feel bad like fighting these monsters? They're so realistic now. Like, why do we need to fight them in the first place? Leave them alone. Let them live their lives. I am sure that Capcom has, again, to the point of Q&As, like the world's longest Q&A to address this, but it is kind of in the back of my mind of like, are there some people who are just going to be like, I kind of just don't like the whole conceit of this, of going out and taking down these big monsters, especially again as the game gets more detailed and realistic.
They have done a really good job making the monsters look as disgusting as possible. Like, they're not cute. I would feel bad if it was cute, but they're so gross and so ugly that I feel no remorse.
Okay.
And they're terrifying. So I feel no remorse.
Good.
At all.
Good.
But I can see that becoming a thing. Like, do you feel remorse when you have to kill a giant spider? I don't think so.
In real life?
Or in that game?
No. You said, so you were telling me that this game has the spider slider?
Yes, there's spider slider.
So if you don't like spiders, what are there? Are we talking about bosses or just like little grunt type enemies?
Little grunt enemies. That turns into blobs, like little blobs. There's a boss that you have to fight where it's a giant spider and it conjures like little spiders to like crawl all over you. It's gross.
But the big spider is still a spider.
Yeah.
Then I question the purpose of the spider slider if you are facing down a huge, even scarier spider, but the smaller, less dangerous spiders are nerfed. I do question that a little bit.
They're not nerfed. They're still dangerous. They look like blobs.
Okay.
Maybe you're just overwhelmed by the amount of spiders and you're okay with the one spider. I don't know. I don't have this problem.
Okay.
I've left my, as I told our friends at Capcom, I left my I left that off. I'm a big girl. Can handle the spider. It's
wow.
Okay.
Good for you. Okay. Well, the minute we can talk more about this game, I'm sure we certainly will. Mm-hmm. You have these games that you're just playing long term, so let's just go through some of these and see what you got to say. What's your update on Love and Deep Space?
There's a Valentine's Day special.
Now, somebody was saying in our Discord that this is a little spicy. What happens?
I'm not going to talk about it here. It's too spicy.
You can't talk about it here?
I'm not going to.
Is this game rated something?
I don't know. I don't see a rating on there. There's not ESRB.
What is an age? Like, if you had to give this game an ESRB rating, what would you give it? T?
Yeah.
Well, why can't you talk about that?
PG-13. I mean, it's very you can do a lot of stuff to these boys, and you don't have to, but you can. There's very suggestive stuff for sure.
Okay. Innuendos.
And there's just suggestive situations that's happening.
Sure.
But I'm still slowly going through the story mode. I've met another boy. So they've been adding to I think there's 5 total. So I've been adding to my roster of men that I can interact with. So I think every, story chapter is a new character, and then you unlock these memories and stuff like that. But they do a lot of, just like in Infinity Nikki, they do a lot of like special events, and they had a Valentine's Day one, they had a Lunar New Year's one. So it keeps you coming back to it. I don't play very like long each day, but I'm definitely playing like every day, like at least 15, 30 minutes a day. And you and I were in line for Pokemon cards, and I guess what I was doing, I was playing Love and Deep Space.
You did not play that for long. You're like, oh, I've done what I need to do for the day.
Yeah, I just did what I needed to do. I did actually watch this really interesting documentary about this game
I have
recently.
no clue how you found this.
I've randomly found it on like the NHK channel, which is something that I watch sometimes for like Japanese documentaries. But they had a whole documentary about these women in China, the massive audience for these dating games, and Love and Deep Space isn't the only one, but it is one of the most, more popular ones. I think they said they're like their active users is like 30 million or something. It's like insane how popular this game is. Um, and it's very like they interviewed a bunch of women, and yeah, it is a really interesting like social question of, you know is this a good thing, a bad thing? Like a lot of people are saying, like in their real life relationships they feel very lonely, they feel very like they feel like they're being judged. Like a lot of these women were saying, like, my parents have all these expectations for me. Like I'm like 30 years old. I'm supposed to get married and have kids, but I don't have successful, real life relationships. But I feel like when I play these games, like this other person, this virtual boyfriend basically is like always encouraging, like loves me for who I am. I don't have anybody like that in real life. And this has replaced it. So you're like, on the one hand, it's like, well, I'm glad you're feeling better about yourself. You're like, not, you're feeling more confident about who you are. But also at the same time, it's like, is this dangerous to replace real life relationships with virtual ones? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but it was just it was an interesting thing. It was like so random because I was literally playing this game when I stumbled upon this, and I was just really surprised at like how many people are playing this game, and how many people are playing this game as a replacement for like real feelings and real emotion. So interesting stuff. Very, a question that gets out there for games like this, that is very much rooted in like having like a virtual life, or whatever. So
Do you
anyhow,
remember the name of that documentary if anybody wants to
I will
check
look
it
it
out?
up and put it in the.
We're
I'll
all
put
just
it.
watching NHK all day long,
I
clearly.
like
How
NHK.
did you find this?
They have
Okay.
a really good one about Square Enix too. Anyways.
Oh. Well, now I'm realizing that on your list you did not have Infinity Nikki on the list. So what happened? Fell off?
No, I'm still
Taking a
playing it, but
break?
I don't have a huge
There's no new
update for
news.
it.
Okay.
No new news. Although
Elden
they
Ring?
new outfits are coming.
Elden
Elden
Ring
Ring,
updates?
yes. Elden Ring updates. I am doing great. I am now literally in front of the door to the second to the last boss. I didn't go in yet because am I playing this game for one of our gameplay videos? Because if so, I will save it.
I think
Right.
that would be great, but so you have to do those back to back, or
I don't know. I just can't go in. I don't
you
want to
don't
go in
know?
that door because I don't want to start that sequence in
Okay.
case we want to do it.
I think that would be really fun, but if you're in the rhythm and you want to do
No,
it,
I don't
I
have
don't
to.
want to. I don't want to force you.
I don't have to. I can definitely. I mean, well, I might
You're like, oh
fail.
my gosh, I got because I'm just seeing how I could be blamed for this.
I'm gonna. I
You
might
made me
fail
wait a week, and now
miserably.
I'm rusty, and now I can't do it, and now you're gonna take the brunt of this now. Like I guarantee you, this is what's gonna happen.
It's your fault somehow.
Yes.
I've done a bunch of like side bosses too, so I feel pretty prepared for this. I did all the quests to get those two people to help me. I definitely did that. I fought some dragons. I would love to grind a little bit more and get my level up to 200. I am now level 189, I believe. So just 10 more levels,
All right, well,
nothing
you can do that
major.
while we get ready to do
I'll do
this.
that.
Whilst I recover.
Yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll attempt it. I might good very high chance of failure. We'll see how it goes. I
Yeah,
mean, it could just be like I can't do it, and then that's what it is.
sure.
But we can experience that together if you guys want us to make this into a gameplay video. I
Yeah.
have heard some concerning things about the final boss being like really cheap and kind of, kind of not very fun actually. So we'll see how it goes. But yes, I love this game. It's fantastic. I really like after playing this DLC, it's like, yeah, this is like my second favorite game of all time for sure. Like 100% on the list. Someone in our Discord made a funny comment that I was reading about our 3-year anniversary. They're like, 3 years later, you're still playing Elden
It's
Ring.
true.
And it's hilarious because I remember one of our first like gameplay videos was us playing. That's when that game came out 3 years ago.
Just came out, yeah.
And we had that video where you had to like shave your beard if I beat that first boss. Like, what is it? Like the Margot, the whatever. Yeah. And I remember like beating it really easily. And I was like, oh, I'm better at this than I thought. And you definitely had to shave your beard. 3 years later, here we are.
I've been shaving a lot over the years, it seems. You mentioned this last week, Vitamin Connection. We played a little bit of the co-op of that. And I just had a hard time grasping like what kind of game that was. But that was a very fun co-op game.
Yeah.
So you are in this little ship. And
it's a GameCube controller. It's a Switch Joy-Con.
We each had a different job. So what was your job?
My job was to move the ship forward, backwards, like move the ship and press the button to shoot the laser.
Okay.
Your job was to rotate the ship directionally, and then also aim the laser.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And it was different than what we expected because I was actually holding my Joy-Con like upright, I think, instead of sideways.
Oh.
And yeah, it was like a very, it was a true co-op experience where you are dependent on the other person to like maneuver through the world. We didn't get a chance to play any of the little mini games that are like we did the part where we can like move through the world and like we were like shooting the germs and stuff, but we didn't do any of the little like mini games that I wanted to try. So we should probably try that next because there's some really fun, like a fun rhythm game that I did. There's also one that was like kind of like that game where like you can't touch there's like a string, you have like a circle and you can't touch a string or else it like, buzzes at you. There's like a mini game like that might be fun to try with two people because for what doing it by yourself, it was already kind of hard, and I can imagine like coordinating with another person could be like fun and challenging too.
So when you're playing by yourself, you have to do all those things on your own?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a lot to do.
It's a lot. It's pretty hard. Yeah, it's pretty hard. But I liked it. I thought it was really fun.
I'd want to play a little bit more because I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, Switch exclusive. We did confirm that it was a Switch exclusive.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Lastly, I don't have any of these yet. I went on a shopping binge for some Nintendo 64 sports games.
Wow.
And I think it's, again, like we're getting ready to do this Mischief Makers video. I got to make sure, we're ready on the Nintendo 64. And I was like, this is like all these libraries. I had a lot of games that I sold, and I might want to shore them back up. But we have NSO. Didn't have a huge library to begin with, so I'm like, well, what would be some good games to get? And I remember like that was kind of the last gasp of sports games where it was still relatively approachable, had depth, but was not like fighting game level detail like a modern sports games does now. So I've been picking up a bunch. I got like a FIFA game. So there were these really great wrestling games on the Nintendo 64, and I recently watched that Netflix documentary on Vince McMahon, which was very good. So I got one of those. I got like an NFL Blitz. I got those. So I'm excited to check these out and get back into them. I got some baseball games. Because that is something that I miss with games now, is like just the pick up and play sports game where you can just kind of quickly get through a game or play with somebody who doesn't have an experience. Like you really can't do that now.
Yeah, and that's too complicated now.
And that's a shame because that used to be such a rich genre. So I'm excited to get those, although it's off to a really bad start. I got the first one in the mail yesterday, this FIFA game. This thing, it said in the listing, tested, cleaned, works. This thing is filthy. I don't know how some of these games get so dirty.
Ew!
Like
what do you
really
mean filthy?
Like dirty, like filthy, just like caked with something, grime.
Oh no!
And like I really went at it with like an alcohol wipe, and I cleaned the outside. I got in with the
Q-tip?
like a Q-tip and more alcohol on the connectors itself, and that thing was black. when I was done with that. And I did that like 5 or 6 times. And every time,
my
like,
goodness.
how did this happen? Like, was this buried underground for 20 years or something?
You took a picture of it when it was dirty, right?
Yes.
Good, because you might have to return it.
I still was not able to get it to work. I'm going to do another couple passes on it today after we finish, but otherwise I might be sending that thing back. That's a huge bummer because I was looking forward to playing that. And I guess that's the risk of these eBay things. The eBay drama is looming for me. I may have to put this person on blast if they go, "Nope, that was clean, bro."
Oh, here comes that
game worked, bro.
The negative
no way, bro.
review.
Don't make me give you that negative review. That's the worst thing you can do.
1 star.
This is why I had to get. I used to sell a lot of the random, like, again, I sold a lot of these games that I had on eBay. And I know all the little tricks.
You do?
Little things that people will say. Like,
I don't know how anybody does anything on eBay.
It's really, it can get really annoying if something is not, to your liking or what you expected. So
it sounds terrible.
I'm hoping it's drama free, but I don't know.
Ugh.
It also cost me $10, so maybe I shouldn't be so.
No, principle.
Yeah, I'm not going to just keep the thing that's getting caked in filth.
Principle.
Oh my gosh, how does that happen? Let's move on to the news. So last week was the Nintendo financial results, and as always happens, there's a Q&A with Mr. Furukawa, and that's always a great read. That's on that Nintendo Investor Relations site. If you want to just read all of his responses and all of the silly questions from the investors who sometimes are a little out of touch. But he got a good question about the price of the Switch 2, and I'm just going to go ahead and read his response. We are aware that in addition to how inflation is currently proceeding, the exchange rate environment has also changed significantly since around the time we launched Nintendo Switch in 2017. We also need to consider the price range that consumers expect for Nintendo products. We think a multifaceted consideration of these factors is needed when deciding on the price of a product. I cannot tell you specific price for Nintendo Switch 2 at this time, but we are taking various factors into account. Currently, there are no plans to change the pricing of Nintendo Switch hardware. What do you make of this?
I mean, he can't tell you right now. That's going to be in the April 2nd Direct, so he needs to say something that is to this point of like, we're taking lots of factors into consideration. But I don't think that, I don't think people should expect this to be the same price as Nintendo Switch, first of all. I think it's going to be a lot more expensive. I think that it is not the right time to price drop Switch, but that I don't think that there is that him saying that, there's no plans right now means that there won't be plans later. So
I think this is a promising signal just for them to say, like, yeah, we know people expect Nintendo stuff to be relatively affordable. I've seen a lot of people kind of rallying around $400 as a very reasonable price. I think that would go over pretty well probably if that was the price. There's obviously a lot of factors that play into that. Are you still, you had some cockamamie like, oh, it's going to be $367.
No, I said it was going to be $3.90
or something. How much?
$3.90, like $3.89.
That's not how they price these things.
They might just to get it right.
What is your latest target?
It's going to be like right under $400, I think.
Okay, but not over $400.
I don't think it's going to be over $400.
I think that would be great if they could get it at $400. But I think he's saying the right things here to make us not worry.
Yeah, I don't think what he's saying is an indication of it being like completely overpriced. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you just like break down, like inflation is happening. That's he's saying like it's going to be more.
Yeah.
Exchange rate fluctuating, meaning this is going to be like we may not have decided. We have options. We're going to see. We're going to go as long as we can, but also like people expect it's going to be relatively low. So kind of read between the lines here.
Yeah.
EA and Take-Two have also had their big financial updates, and they were both talking Switch 2. Take-Two said that it fully expects to support the Switch 2. They said there was a time when Nintendo platforms were really geared towards younger audiences, and that was reflected in our release schedule. And now today with the Switch and potentially with Switch 2, the Switch device can support any audience. And then EA was saying that they talk about having a great relationship with Nintendo over the years, although that's a relationship that has really fluctuated. Said specifically, our expectation is that products like FC, which was previously FIFA, and Madden and others might find real energy on the platform as they have done in the past. And when you think of something like The Sims and the My Sims Cozy Bundle, which performed well ahead of our expectations, that represents a great opportunity for us. Now, a lot of people with Take-Two jump to the conclusion that, Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming to the Switch too. That's quite a leap of logic for me based on this very short comment here. And I don't know if this was people hunting a headline or what, but I was like, let's calm down here.
Yeah, that's a pretty big leap there. We have no idea what the hardware needs for Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be. So yeah, I feel like that's just like a big headline. Just pair one really anticipated thing with another really anticipated thing. So
yeah, I think Take-Two's been a pretty good supporter of the Switch. Like they brought the Civilization games. They've had some Borderlands games. The NBA 2K has been like on the platform from a very early time. So it's like, I would expect them to be strong with it. EA, though, I'm really curious about what they do. And for him to specifically mention Madden, which has not been on a Nintendo franchise for a long time, is interesting.
Yeah.
FIFA and FC have been on, and that's been like, those were always a real grind, like when we would be brought in to try and help those, because there's very little that you can do because of the licensing specifics. And it always felt like it was underperforming, but it was like, oh God, we have to support this to show EA that we like this and we care, and we're supporting their product. But yeah, I mean, they're in the same position as everybody else of having games that cost a lot of money that, you should put out as broadly as you can. And I think they've been slow to adopt to the realities of the Switch. So yeah, hopefully they can come around and put their best stuff out there and just find and enjoy this new audience.
Yeah. Good news on the Sims stuff too. That game was such like a hot thing over the holidays. People love that.
My Sims.
Yes. And the Cozy Bundle.
And yeah, now they have like the Sims retro, like the original Sims games that came out.
Yeah.
It just seems like a no-brainer to get that stuff out there.
Exactly.
Patent watch. People love watching patents. The patent for the Joy-Con mouse functionality came out, and there are some images. Who has to draw these? Is like, which is a better job, drawing these patent hands, or doing like police sketches? Which would be better?
Is this like AI?
No.
Someone is drawing. Maybe there's
somebody's
like a
job
template or something like that.
So you can see. So the thing that I didn't necessarily realize before, I always thought that just one of the Joy-Cons had the mouse.
Yeah.
In these. And I don't know, maybe this is not the final execution. You see two hands holding these as a mouse. So like, is there a dual mouse situation? Do both of the Joy-Con have the mouse feature in it?
There's also one image where you're holding them different ways. One you're holding down on the table like a mouse, and when you're holding upright. And I'm presuming you're using the mouse part of it and then also using the other one to do something else.
That's what I expected it would be, which is, it's like a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
It's like you have the mouse for looking, and then, the keyboard is basically the buttons.
The buttons, yeah.
That are in your hand. But yeah, that's an interesting idea that there could potentially be dual mouse
how would you
features.
use that?
I guess I would need to see some examples of that in execution, but for whatever reason, and maybe it just was not really covered in all of those hardware leaks. I was like, I hadn't really thought of that. So again, like there's so much about this that we still don't know.
Yeah.
And need to know and see in action.
I was going to say, that's the most important thing for me is like, yes, this is an interesting little potential bit of technology, but how is it going to work in a game? How's it going to make it like feel, how is it going to play? And does it feel cool and worth it, So that's what I'm most curious about. I'm sure we'll see that in the direct. And I'm sure that's going to be something that is going to be talked about a lot once people test it out.
Yeah.
But that's just an open question for now.
Keep watching those patents. And then there was a big PSN
Oh
outage
man.
over the weekend, which was pretty long. It was about 24 hours, started Friday night and didn't end until well into Saturday. And Sony never really said what happened.
Right.
Like there were a lot of theories of like, oh, they're getting a DDoS attack or they got hacked and they had to take it down. But it's kind of a bad look, and it made everybody get very introspective about the current state of games and how it's like, it's a bummer that
digital, physical,
we have single player games that need to authenticate online. So it's like, what, I can't play this. So like if I want, it's Friday, I was going to download this game and start playing it. Now I can't. This sucks. And people just feeling like, we're being thrust into this digital only life, but these platforms can have these outages that can last for a long time. And you're just kind of on the outs. And at the meantime, you have games that, are getting, that daily revenue, a fortnight of like, the daily spending on a fortnight is significant. So losing a platform is a significant hit to them too. But it did eventually come back. People will get, if you're a PlayStation Plus member, you will get an additional 5 days of service for your trouble.
5 days only?
Well, I mean, it was out for 1 day.
Lifetime.
So it did harken back to, I think it was 2011. There was like a weeks long PSN outage that I know. Do you remember this at all?
Yes, I do.
Was obviously really bad and really harmful, and just had a lot of long-term repercussions. So, obviously the people who are around then were like, oh, this is nothing. I was there for 2011. But like, I remember like they were launching a new SOCOM game, which is a series that is no longer around because of this, because that was an online shooter. They had to release an online shooter into an environment where you could not play online. That was the end of SOCOM. I remember the new, I think it was Mortal Kombat 9 had just come out, and I was getting into playing online matches, and I was like, well, and I had it on PS3, and I was like, well, guess I'm playing something else for a little while. So it's just a bummer when these things happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know what can come of it, or what safeguards they can put in place to avoid these things happening. But the reaction just gets more and more virulent every time it does.
People are really upset about how Sony has been a little cloak and dagger on this as well, because they're like, well, if this is related to any sort of hack, I need to know. We want you to tell us that our information is actually safe.
Right.
So there is a lot more tied to this than just like, I'm bummed that I couldn't play my game.
Yeah, they didn't handle it well.
Hours. It's a matter of your personal information being hacked potentially, or like whatever. So yeah, I agree. They did not handle this very well. They were very quiet in terms of even acknowledging the problem. Like, this was happening Friday night. I was actually trying to play something on Friday night, and I was like, what's going on? And I kept restarting my PS Portal because it was like, you can't log in. You can't connect to your network. I'm like, why? I was like, is it my internet? So
could you play the Portal at all?
Eventually I was able to, but I had to like do some weird stuff. Like I had to disconnect it and then just play it with I don't know. It was weird. Eventually I got it to work, but it did give me some trouble.
Yeah, they didn't do great messaging. It looked like they also had some like scheduled tweets that somebody forgot to unschedule. I was like, oh, pick up a disk drive for your digital PS5. And people were saying like, you have to authenticate that disk drive through the internet, so you can't actually do that. So it was just a bad look all around. People were getting big mad.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the questions from our community. We get each and every question from our Patreon community. Check us out at patreon.com/Kit and Krysta. You are going to be reading the questions today to save it some voice.
Yeah, your voice sounds a little rough right now. So let me read the questions. Here we go. Banana Bread Slice. Hi, Kit and Krysta. You talked in the past about how difficult it was to get Nintendo to launch the socials they have now, but the landscape has changed quite a bit. What would it take to get Nintendo on Blue Sky? I don't want to go on Twitter/X at all anymore, and I know a lot of people are in the same boat. But Nintendo continues to share official announcements there. If running a Blue Sky account would be as simple as copying and pasting the exact same content over there, why doesn't Nintendo do it? There are even bots that can do this automatically. What would it take internally at Nintendo to make this happen?
So this is where it's like it's a little hard to know like what the truth is as far as like any potential decline of Twitter or rise of Blue Sky. Like there will be these like flashpoints where, you know, you'll see and hear people leaving and like, oh, I'm going to Blue Sky. I've had enough here. Um, but it's hard to know like do those have a long-term effect? Are those people, because we've seen this a lot, people loudly declare I'm leaving Twitter and I'm never coming back, and then the day later they are back. I will say like there are some people who have actually done that. So you know you do need to be on multiple platforms if there are people you care about who have done that. Um, so I think they're looking closely at like is there an actual trend here? Like are we actually losing any of that audience, or you know is this just kind of people getting worked up and then things kind of going back to the status quo until you know the next kind of you know dust up happens. But again, like this is one of their biggest platforms. They have over 10 million followers for Nintendo of America, and I don't think they've seen any drop off as far as the effectiveness of them making announcements. Anything that they post there gets immediately picked up by the news, immediately gets becomes a point of conversation. Not just there, like you know, on Blue Sky that happens. So I think for their, you know, for them to say like, well, to start from zero on a new platform that is basically the same as another platform with a slightly different audience is a big ask. I also wouldn't minimize, you know, this point about, you know, it's just another platform to post on, just like copy and paste. They are different. Like they do have different character limits. They do process assets a little bit differently. You know, I say this is the person who has to post all of our stuff across a lot of different platforms. There are sometimes it's like, wait, they don't. Oh, they're not as similar as you might think. And you know, when you look at how many times they post a day, like sometimes they'll post, you know, 10 times a day, like in the heat of a busy time, you know, that does become 10 additional things for the social team to have to do. So I think this is all getting taken into consideration. And again, it's like, ultimately it becomes a question of like, is there a real business need for us to do this? And I think just at this point, the answer is not really, to be honest.
And there is something about like this idea of longevity that's going to be a question for them as well. You know, they probably we talked about this a little bit when TikTok was going through all that drama, the ban drama a couple of weeks ago in the beginning of the year, and how Nintendo might be patting themselves on the back because they're like, well, aren't we smart to have, you know, had the foresight to not be on this platform because now look at this drama. And you know, it's a significant lift for the teams inside Nintendo to support a new platform. And, you know, even if Blue Sky is very similar to Twitter and they have some, you know, overlap with how you can post, it is still work to start and manage a new platform. And without the guarantee of longevity and the guarantee of, you know, the audience being an audience that they're not already reaching on the other social channels they're on, they're just not going to want to make that investment.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right, next question is from Domino Crossing. Oh, Doominal.
Domino
Crossing. Doominal Crossing.
No, look at the icon. It's a cute little. I thought this was an Isabelle and a Doom guy. Okay, there we go. Doominal Crossing, yes.
Doominal Crossing. Hi, Kit and Krysta. The Switch brought so many dormant franchises back in style, and we'll probably continue to see that with Switch 2. What's your favorite comeback title, and what is your most wanted for the next generation? Mine is for sure Paper Mario Thousand Year Door.
Oh.
That was amazing. I can't believe that. I still can't believe that happened, honestly. I really can't believe it.
I don't know if I would call it a comeback, but it just feels like Kirby became really, really dominant and big in the Switch generation. There were a lot of games. There were a lot of Kirby games. They were mostly good. Obviously, with Forgotten Land, you had this breakthrough of it going properly 3D and kind of taking the franchise to the next level. But beyond that, like it just felt like there was like a bigger push for the brand overall, and like we saw that in a big way in Japan. It was like there's just a lot of Kirby merch everywhere. Like they had the Kirby Cafe. If you go to one of these like gotcha games, it's like Kirby, Kirby, Kirby. So I think it's kind of like there was this big push of let's make these great games on the Switch. That were reaching new audiences, but also like the people that were just overseeing the Kirby brand just seemed to be making some really good decisions that were helping it to grow and to just get this surge in popularity. So I've been very impressed with what's happening with Kirby.
I think Kirby's more popular than ever before.
Yeah, like Kirby made the leap into like the top tier.
And Kirby's been around
Nintendo
for a
franchises.
long time too. Yeah. Kirby's been around forever, so it's like a cool thing to see this like long-lasting character just like kind of dominate even today. So
yeah. As far as most wanted, I mean, I've said this a million times. Star Fox, please.
Star Fox.
They've taken we have not had a Star Fox game for a long time. We did not get a Star Fox game on the Switch. Like,
yeah.
I really hope somebody is rethinking what Star Fox is and can be for the Switch 2. There's a lot you could do with a little mouse, a lot you could do there. But just to make this, feel more modern, make it feel bigger, make it more appealing to what a modern audience wants. There's like so much that you can do. And I just hope they don't feel like beholden to the past, because that's just a franchise where what they did in the past is like, just doesn't carry a lot of weight these days.
It's not really a comeback either, because we did have some solid entries on Switch for Fire Emblem. I would say like Three Houses was by far better than what was the one with the red and blue? What was it called?
Engage.
Thank you. I even forgot the name. I think that there's more to Fire Emblem that can be pushed. So I would love to see them like continue to get creative with Fire Emblem on Switch 2 and not, don't forget about that great franchise. I know it made a comeback in the 3DS days, and had some solid stuff on Switch, but I think there's more that can happen with Fire Emblem.
I thought you were going to say Rhythm Heaven.
Well, Rhythm Heaven for sure, but I feel like I say that a lot. So.
Okay, another like any Wario game, that'd be a great comeback. Yeah. Like WarioWare got a little stale in the Switch generation, and then like Wario Land, like there's all these really high quality indies that are kind of aping the style of Wario Land, but it's like, well, what could Nintendo do with its own IP in this kind of style of game that it created? Like it feels like just really rich opportunity that for whatever reason they didn't want to get on. So I'd love for that to come back.
Yoshi too is another one where like I feel like Yoshi could be like the Kirby of Switch 2 if they can put some work into making that into like a cool character and just getting that character out there. Like Yoshi games are very hit or miss. Like sometimes those levels are just like so long and a little boring, and they're I like those games, but I also dislike those games. Like I feel like Yoshi is one of my favorite characters, and it deserves a more modern take. Maybe there's a 3D Yoshi game in our future. I don't know. That'd be cool. All right. Next question is from Ninja11. Hi, Kit and Krysta. Your fascinating answer to this question poses another. I guess he asked a different question.
So this is referring to something we answered in a bonus Q&A.
Oh, okay.
Which is Patreon exclusive, but it was about when we proposed having Doug show off his Animal Crossing New Horizons Island on Nintendo Minute.
Got it. When you tried replicating the Reggie Animal Crossing Nintendo Minute video with Doug Bowser for New Horizons, you mentioned you shared some screenshots of his island that showed how it was a reflection of himself. I gotta ask, what was his island like? Also, does he embrace the jokes comparing him to King Koopa because of his name? We rarely get to hear anything about him. He's a big mystery. Thank you.
Yeah, he pulled some screenshots and videos of his island, and what I remember is like he had made like this custom soccer field,
yeah,
that just looked really nice,
and
was like really well done, and that's something he has an interest in, and he clearly like put a lot of effort into giving it a lot of detail and making it look nice. So yeah, like he was as into that game as anybody else in that moment, and the the punchline to that story that we shared was that, even though we had this great opportunity to have him come on and show it off and kind of connect with people that way, the powers that be said, no, we don't want to do it. We shouldn't have Doug do this, which was a bummer because, he was passionately playing this game just like everybody else.
Yeah. And he really does embrace the comparison to
He loves that.
King Koopa. He loves that. I think that, he likes the idea of his name being associated with like the big boss villain of the Nintendo universe. And he really like embraces that. And we joke around with, we would joke around, lots of people would joke around with him all the time about, his name and stuff like that. So yeah, he definitely embraced that and he loved the jokes and he very much like be part of the joke as well for that. But he is a big mystery. I hope that we hear a little bit from Doug Bowser when Switch 2 stuff starts to come out. All right, last question is from Riven. For Nintendo, how important is it that Switch lifetime sales continue to surpass historic milestones? It's nearly outsold the 3DS and is a bit shy of outselling the PS2. Is there something Nintendo is actively aiming to achieve? Could you see a price cut or other aggressive changes to encourage more sales?
Yeah, so they're within 10 million of the PS2, and I think they're within 4-ish million of the DS.
Yeah, they'll definitely surpass DS, I think.
And it seems like they have a really good shot of getting past the PS2. But as far as them, doing something to actively achieve that, with that being the goal, no, I mean, they're going to go about their business. They have their own goals, their own milestones, their own timelines. I think if it happens, that's great. But it's just like, it's a very pragmatic company. And what does that get you? If you surpass it? Okay. But ultimately that really doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
Like that doesn't mean you hit your forecast. That doesn't mean, you made a great game. I mean, obviously, long-term was a very popular system, but they have, they have the money in the bank to prove that they did that. They're not going to put, endanger any plans to further the business to reach this this milestone. And if they do, nobody's getting a cake, nobody's getting a pat on the back. It's like back to work. It'll come up in one of those Monday meetings.
Yeah. Oh, by the way.
Oh, wow, cool. And then it's like, all right, on to the sales forecast. You guys are way behind.
Yeah. What is your plan to get more sales? And I think at this point, honestly, they're less concerned about meeting any sort of milestone for Switch and more concerned about the smooth transition between Switch and Switch 2. At this point, they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's going to sell what it is. We've gotten through this holiday like we planned. We did what we had to do there. We kept people as much on the prize of Switch as we could before we kind of transitioned to them thinking about Switch 2. So we did our job. And if we need to price cut it in service of transitioning people to Switch 2, that's when they'll do those things versus it being a strategy to surpass a sales number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the questions. Thanks to everybody who sent one in. Again, you can check us out at patreon.com/KitandKrysta, where for just a few dollars a month, you can get exclusive content, so much exclusive content. Oh my gosh. Our notification squad tiers up. They have been eating well, as they say. Early access to this podcast and a lot more, and become part of our wonderful community.
Yes. We're also on the socials. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky. Yes, we are on Blue Sky, and Threads.
And if you're watching this on video, can you please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you aren't already? You could even also give the video a thumbs up and leave us a comment to check out. And if you're listening on audio, you can also subscribe, give the podcast a 5-star rating, or leave a written review, if you please. All those things really help us out a lot.
All right, we're going to wrap up this episode by shouting out our wonderful Patreon community, starting with Final Boss, Aaron Hash. Can you point?
This is why I secretly came in here to do this.
Point. There you go.
Oh, my arm doesn't bend
there.
This way.
Your
there
arm
we go.
is like all
There's
weird.
Aaron Hash.
Aaron Hash.
Right there.
There.
I wanted some one-on-one time with the avatar.
Yes. Aaron Hash. Excellent. Okay, superstars. I'm just going to do a chunk and then you do a chunk.
Great.
Ben Icorn, Maru Mayhem, Eigenverse, Kiss My Flapjack, Mike Chin, Roy Eschke, Switching It Up _ VGM Life, Link, the Hero of Winds, Angela Bycroft, Thomas O'Rourke, Kyle LaBeouf, Roberto Nieves, take it away!
Frederick Ulf Conradson, Andrew Uhas, Chili, Simon, Krashuri, Master Discord, Ash, Ajay Kundlas, 40 Gig, Travis Torline, Echo Ladare, and That's So Linnell.
Wow, wonderful. And here come our one-up club: Aaron Burgundy, Ali Alejandro, Aristu, Astrodev, Awesome46, Axel, Bates, Benji B, Big and Gamer with a Y, Brandon Kavapol, Brent Dennison, Brovac Novak, Bruce Dash, Bucky Flores, Cameron, Shadir, Chelly Squirrel, Crispy Saurus, Chris Galvin, Christopher Lay, Cosmic Titan 718, Captain Alex, C Roper 17, Dagdaleo, Dallas E, Daniel Phillips, Dachshund, Devi P, Doinko, Dre, Dude Dad Life _ Trilek, Eccentric Tony, Elite Peach, Esparts 50, Furbound, Fernie and Jess Forever, Fox Deploy, Funky Hand, Garth the Wolf, Guardtooth, Jin Wolf, Guilty Phoenix 42, Handheld Gamer, Happy Sloth, I May Have Made a Mistake, Iris Marin, Jay Rando, Jack Hoving, Jameson Eisenberg, Joe Encarnacion, Jonathan Bro, Jordan Hemmerly, Joshua Clements, Juji Fruit, Justin Lemminger, Jay Wolf, Callan CPU 57, Kawa 2796, Keith Kwan, Kevin Delane, Kilo Kibo, Christopia Party With Me, Kyle Gamerberry Rookie, Kyle 325, Kyle Kretzer, Kyle R. Smith. Take it away!
We got Lazy Cat for Coffee, Leviahu, Lex, Link 9898, Lil Mikey, Linko, Light Latte, Lit, Lucas Pico, Luigi 53, Luna B, Lynn, Macho Potato, Mad Dog 5981, Magnificent Easy G and Callie Marie, Mario Man 392, Mark S, Marky Man 64, Maverick Nate, Mecha Dragon 101, Megan, May plus Leon, Michael Mazer, Michael Wong, Mikey, Mr. Ryan 07, Motomania, Mr. Andy Pong, Mr. Beans and Dip, MSM Poke Gamer, Mytran, Nami, Nasir, Naif E, Ninja 11, Noah San, Pangy, Patrice Millette, Paul Gale Network, Prime Factor, Prince Charmless, Punky, Raintech, R. Burns, Record Rumble, Ryoji Utsuhu Okou, Rob M, Rob O, Romsky 113, Rox, Ryan Haas, Ryanetta, Sharif Jackson, Shinryu, Schmiggles, Slowbro, Snozzle, Spacey Poo, Spicy Munchkin, Starman DX, Steel Citron, Pseudo Priest, Tales of Link, Tandem, Tay120 N64, Teal Fox 64, The Keggers, The Quiet One, The Shark Among Men, Thomas Alvarez, Three Rivers, Torcheeks, Totally Joe Ed, Todamaru, Trajawi, Trev Tendo 88, Tugs Puppy Bear, Tuskoob, Tyler Geis, Uncle Jungle, Victor MK, Video Game Stupid, Vidgmictor, Viridian, VirtualBot, WG Grizzy, YU, Wicked Davy, Zelgaroth, Zapati, Zero Link, and Droid.
Wow.
I'm sad that I cannot say Pangy and Snozzle with my usual pizzazz, but I need to understand my limits today.
Pangy!
There you go.
Schnozzle! Droid.
Yes.
I will do it. I will volunteer as tribute to say the names in a funny way. Okay, we have to go.
As my physical body crumbles.
You are not okay anymore.
What? Oh,
I mean, you look fine, but also I feel bad because I've done this before, and it is very tough to do a 2 hour.
I'm feeling okay. I probably got 30 more minutes on the Dayquil, but yes, good place to stop.
Good place to stop. All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up for today, and we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.